All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Beyond Baroque Literary Arts Center. Welcome to the Wanda Coleman Theater. My name is Quentin Ring. I am Beyond Baroque's Executive Director. It's very nice to see you all here tonight. We've got a great crowd. We've got a truly incredible lineup of poets for you this evening. And we are all here to celebrate the great Dorothy Barresi tonight. We'll get to the poetry in just a second, but I did want to start by acknowledging our presence here on Tongva land. It's very important to recognize the first peoples of this land. We acknowledge the wrong done to indigenous peoples through settler colonialism, genocidal practices, and the violent dispossession of their land. And as an arts organization, we are and remain committed to uplifting indigenous writers, their narratives, their poetry, and their art. As all of you know, I think Beyond Baroque is very much a space and a community dedicated to the artistic possibilities of language. We're a space for poets, above all, but for writers, for artists, performance artists, anybody who uses art as a sort of central medium of artistic language as a central medium of artistic expression. We have writing workshops, our free weekly Monday night fiction workshop, as well as our Wednesday night poetry workshop. Very large number of LA's better known poets, including several in the audience here tonight, went through those workshops. We also have regular master classes, including upcoming workshops with Jose Hernandez-Diaz, as well as with Lori Bedikian, coming up in the next month or so. And we have readings and performances pretty much every weekend here in this space. Tomorrow we have a dual book launch for the Texas Poet Laureate, Lorena Silva, as well as Angelina Science. And next week we have a reading and mini arts festival celebrating Black History Month. The event is called Black Radiance. It includes poets published by Skew Magazine, who are in partnership with for the event. And we also have a reading and book launch for Jose Hernandez-Diaz for his new book. Finally, in beginning of March, we have a memorial for the late Bob Branneman, who for a long time was our artist in residence here. You can see his show here in the Mike Kelly Gallery. Please do check it out if you haven't already. Please come back for the memorial so that we can celebrate Bob and his work and his life. We depend on the support of our members for everything we do here. So if you are not a member, or you'd like to renew your membership, or even just like to give us a little extra money, you can become a member tonight or donate in the bookstore with Genesis. Most of our events are free. We do charge occasionally, but your membership helps us keep those events free. If we do have to charge, you either get them for free or get on a discount. You get a discount on our paid workshops. You get a discount on our bookstore. And you help support everything we do. We just got a huge rainstorm. There's all kinds of damages piling up. And so all that money goes into fixing up the building and et cetera, et cetera. So for those of you who are members, truly thank you. We really appreciate it. I also want to say thank you to our staff. Huge thank you to our staff. Includes Eric Alberg, who's in the booth. Ivan Salinas, who is reading in this program, but also did a huge amount of work to put it together. Jimmy Vega. Genesis Perez, Michelle Raphael, Simone Wesley. So thank you all. I love working at Beyond Baroque. And the reason I love working here is because I have the opportunity to be in this space and to meet people like Dorothy Barresi, who I just consider an exceptionally talented poet and a wonderful person. I hadn't seen Dorothy in a while. One of the advantages of working here, too, is I can say, well, let's celebrate someone. We get to see her again. I haven't seen her in like over a year. So here we are. She's a great poet. She's a great mentor as well. And so I'm just really thrilled to see the community out for her. There's a superb lineup of folks to pay tribute to her tonight, starting with the host and the real organizer of the events, Dan Murphy. So Dan Murphy is going to be your host tonight, so please welcome him. He's going to say a few more words. Thank you all for being here.
Coming to class, I'm going to bring my backpack. I first want to thank Quentin and Yvonne and Beyond Baroque for having this event tonight. I'm really happy honored and proud to be here. And I also want to thank Mariano Saro, who encouraged me when I had this idea. I said, yeah, you should do it. You could do it. I know Quentin. We can talk to them. We can. Anyways, truly, to the people who say yes when you have an idea, I want to thank those people. The encouragers, I'd like to be one of those, but I'm always looking for encouragement, so I'm not that good of an encourager, that's true. But that's okay. Let me pull out some things. Got a couple things. It's a book. So I'll say a couple things about Dorothy, and I know other people will. I don't feel that I have, what did it say? Oh man, I got a bag here too. Okay, well, hold on. Keep your audience paying attention. There's probably some Mad Men thing. Always pay attention. So I just want to. I took a class. I was talking to Marcia, who's one of our readers, Marcia De Lao, about. I was a elementary school teacher, a bilingual. Emergency credential teacher in LA Unified. I was teaching at a school and I had to get a credential. I did not want to get a credential, and I went to Northridge because it was on the way home from the school to my house. And I took a children's literature class, and the professor used to read, great, I don't remember her name, but she would, every class she would read Charlotte's Web. She'd read a chapter of Charlotte's Web. And she'd sit on, the old stool they used to have in the classrooms, and she'd read a chapter, and I swear to God, we're all like, 20 or 30 or however year old, 40-year-old, just loving it. This teacher was great. It's not about you yet, Dorothy. I'll get to that part. There were other good things in her class. But so I wrote a paper in that class, and she said, oh, you should take a poetry class with Dorothy Barresi. You'd like her and she'd like you. And that was really great. So I did take a class with her, and it took me 7 years to finish that credential because I really didn't want to do the credential, but that's about me. But I did later go back and get a master's degree at Northridge, and I got a creative writing degree, and I don't remember if it was in the first, I believe it was the first class I took with Dorothy. She told us one of our jobs was we had to keep a language notebook. What the hell's a language notebook? So we had to get a book that we carried around with us and write things. So I'm just going to show you just a couple examples, because if you are one of those people who's the poet or the writer in your family, they're like, oh, can I borrow your pen? No, I don't want to lend it to you because you're not going to give it back. Anyways, I'm not going to, I'll only read a little bit because it's embarrassing. But I have all these books, and I remember this, and I regret that the cover's missing, but I think this is my first language notebook, and Dorothy's just said, whatever comes to you, just, whatever thing. And I remember people in one of the classes, we had all written, like Ricochet. There was a movie, I think Denzel Washington or something. We all written Ricochet that week or something. But my first words are scribe, script, scrape, scar, scintillate. That yearning is like the red sky before dawn. It's pretty good. Eyes that droop, 2 round stoned moons. Okay. Anyway, some of that stuff's crap. But you know what? It is mine, and it came out of me, and it's really, I think of it later, that it was kind of like how people talk about that Buddhism makes you, focus on the world and attention to your life. And I feel like that really made me focus on look at this one. Oh, I'm holding it like this is the camera. A little Snoopy. I have, I think this is a Reese's peanut butter cup one, and they have all these, and there are great songs in here too. A lot of these are classic. One of my favorite, Bad's Madhu. My wife nicknamed Madhu. And then all these, just like give yourself time to dream. And then, so anyways, I'll put those away before, something bad happens. But I just want to say that truly was a gift to me in my life to focus on language and writing, and sort of almost like it made it okay that I had that internal dialogue, I guess, and I was able to make scraps and things out of that, whether they were songs or whether they were poems or just who knows what they were. So I want to thank you for that. It was one of the great things that happened to me. So Dorothy was my teacher. She was my, what do you call that person on when you get your degree, Kim, your main person? Advisor, yeah, she was my advisor. And on my, sorry, I didn't do that good in the class, but I really liked it a lot. I brought stuff to the teacher. I talked with Kim Young, who's also going to read. We talked about how we might do this event. And the idea was that we all would read a poem of Dorothy's and then read a poem of ours. So I will start, but I will also tell the people, because some people were asking me, what order are we going in? I'm like, I don't know. Oh, wait, it's right here. So I'm going to start, and then Yvonne will come, and then Marcia. Elena is not reading, but I have a little something for her. Maybe I'll run up and read that. Then Lynn, then Suzanne Lummis, and Patty Sayburn is coming in through Zoom or whatever platform you're using, and then Kim Young, and then she'll be leading. Then Dorothy. Sorry, and then Dorothy's going to read. I think. Okay, so we're all like, what am I going to read? Okay, sorry. So I'm going to read a poem from Dorothy's first book, and just a short aside on this is that it was memorialized in. I did read this over some music with a friend of mine, and I were recording, but I don't know what happened to that cassette anymore. Dorothy says maybe she has a copy somewhere. Don't play it. But he just say something. So I read part of this poem with that backing track, and this is called Live Remote. Puritan Road, November 24th, 1963. Think history. Okay. There are thorns, a tiny cyclone fence surrounding the open heart of Jesus on the refrigerator. But to that openness, to that gilded, blue-tipped, ghost-shaped flame in teardrops of blood rolling down his glorious tunic, perfect as what's painted on my sister's stupid Dolly's face, to all of these doings in his chest he points with the mildest agony. There is nothing shocking left in the world. Here is a Sunday with no cartoons. No cartoons. Mother's eyes are rimmed in red. She's pregnant again. On a sofa locked with eagles and cracked bells in the Liberty Weave, her shaky towers rise. Sheets and towels mostly, diapers. We're orphans to the way she folds inside herself, each white flag raised and held a moment longer than anyone in this outpost of neediness can bear. In blue-white tones, the screen describes the circumference of an exit wound or a pillbox hat. But Mother is a dreamy girl again on Chicago's west side, feeding cake from her fingertips to the laughing, white-shoed academy boys. Not this ragged crew, this nightmare of attempted forgetting, and only my brothers in Batman jammies crying, lunch, lunch. My sister tests the doneness of Patrick's fingers in her Easy Bake Oven. First the left hand, then the right. Me, I hate myself. I could be me at 13 or 18, but I am fat, 6, deeply aware that we are given the world and each other, and no wonder we're lonely. But what is TV if not a screen where light divides down, where particles charge and involve us, and we are kissed awake from one native sorrow to another's just because we are watching? We're alive. And Oswald, that fox-faced, want-faced man, makes a sudden deep O with his mouth in our living room because he has not fallen down yet. It is the astonishing first kiss of a bullet in the gut, that look of mortal surprise married to a singular understanding too late that A, he was never alone enough, but now might be forever. B, was never given enough attention, but now might be forever, no matter how hard he tries. Or C, all of the above. And like Wile E. Coyote walking on air 1,000 feet above the Loco Canyon, Oswald has only to look at the camera, look down, and he will accomplish what falls to us all to do sooner or later: commit himself to circumstance in a thin yelp and puff of smoke. He is not alone. There is Ruby with his cocked fedora and thrust gift, the Dallas cops who sway slightly, yearning backwards because there is no way to keep chaos from becoming panic, and panic in turn becoming our personal history of loss and bitter resignation. The hard and hungry world slips gears, revs. Oswald dies, live remote. In the wash of breath coming back, the blackened eye of CBS appears. Station identification. A woman wearing so much mascara she'd rather do anything but blink. Even I look up from my book, which by now is a daydream about Sue Barton, nurse extraordinaire, who heals with clean hands and without pettiness, who dates the handsome doctors, and my mother, groaning and bending now from her big, impossible belly. She holds a dish rag to her eyes, dish rag of belief, and I receive the family signal, run to each of my brothers and kiss them hard on the lips to make them scream. All of the above. That was good. Yeah, strong, right? Somewhere I have, I don't know what I did, probably in here. I'm going to fail on the part of reading your own poem. What did I do with it? You know what? I buried it somewhere. I don't really want to do that. That's weird. It was in here. Oh, here it is. Okay. I'm going to read this one. Dorothy has been an amazing teacher to me, and also one of those people who I can ask her, will you please look at some writing I'm doing? So I'm working on a book about, whatever it takes a little bit of the Odyssey and brings it into the present day. Let's just say that. And this one has a little bit of a father thing, and my father was, So I changed the title. I liked your idea to call it The Classics. I was calling it The Fifth Dementia, which was really just a play on words, and it didn't really have anything to do with the poem, so thank you. This is called The Classics. So this is mine, this is not Dorothy's. This too is a first edition. Father did not buy in full, but paid half off, for he loved other things more, like pagination, small printings, a slip-on, slip-off, clear book cover to wrap the newest book, a new purchase, an over-thumbed jacket, smelling of smoke and spilled scotch, and muted debauchery. But I live local at the library, my adolescence grieved in real time, in dusty silhouette fallen over on reshelved section, with truths ripped from each dog-eared page. I live for the smell of fealty and determination found elsewhere from home, using the master's tools to dismantle his whole effing operation. Okay, so thank you. So that's how we're going to do it. The person's going to say a little thing, hopefully be funny, and then or not, and then read one of Dorothy's poems, and then read one of their own. So I'm going to introduce Ivan Salinas. He's an undocumented poet, co-editor of Drifter Zine, and programs manager at Beyond Baroque. His work has been published in the Acentos Review, Litstack, La Raíz magazine, and elsewhere. He is publishing a bilingual zine-turned-chapbook dealer, Prosa Poética for Carcacha, in 2024. In 2024, I apologize. He lives in Panorama City with Madi and their dog, Rocket, or Madi. Ivan.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Good evening. It is an honor to stand here before you all, and I'm very fortunate that Dorothy was one of my first mentors, instructors, while I was a student undergraduate at Cal State Northridge. And now I'm, with the privilege of standing here working with some of the poets that we actually read in class, from Sam Sachs to Terrence Hayes. So that's a real privilege and a dream that I get to live this and experience it. So I'll say a few more words, but I do want to read one of Dorothy's poems in What We Did While We Made More Guns, which is a very thought-provoking title and timely. And I didn't know Dorothy's books until I got here to Beyond Baroque bookstore. I saw them in the shelves, and I've been reading this since then. And it's been 2 years, so I love poems with long titles, songs with long titles, and what I worry about at night is not what I worry about in the morning. That's the poem I'll be reading. Something of the dark loves money, overspent and unpaid. A quaint redundancies due bill, shoots suckered to night's loan. Bursting it cell by cell, I wake crawling the length of my bed, or I have never actually slept. A neat, expensive garment carries an exemption from personal contact with industrial processes of any kind, which means I'll pay, but how? A question cut on the bias. Even the king of pop is making a decent living again, despite dying. I returned the rose gold bracelet yesterday, but not the navy jacket. The possum, the crickets, the rats' drunk and duly appointed dean of exchequer rattled the trained shrubs outside my window, setting off a moral racket, plus bird cries. What species? The kind that slide deadbolts into trees. Impulse control versus material humanism. Take Emperor Tiberius, who wore a crown of bay leaves to ward off lighting. His heart stopped its obsessive beating at the age of 77, and the crowds outside cheered, falling silent when he momentarily revived, only to be smothered, cue joy, by Caligula, his nephew, who blew through the empire's surplus big time. Parts of this story are certainly untrue, but which ones? There's a green tree in my yard I think I'd like to kill and pull. There are sleeping pills. There's a decorative fountain of ecstatic remorse, rigged to the feeling and emptying of watered-down resolutions. Trusts, deeds, stresses, gal, gin, lewd frogs and bullhorns disproportionately tiny. Royalty checks, so many pretty things to buy, and the soul's future earnings impossible to calculate. Though MJ's mother's lawyers keep trying. If I'm lucky to make it to 77, neither of my careful parents did, it's likely I'll outlive my savings and be quite sorry. A guy in the New York Times predicts this. Ontologically speaking, I shouldn't be okay with that. I light a scented candle to keep me company. Salted caramel from Henry Bedell, my favorite. Dorothy Barresi. Lovely poem, and definitely relate to it. And MJ was one of the first idols I had, and tragic human and very dynamic, and yeah, it's just incredible. So glad I chose that poem. So I had a class with Dorothy as part of my senior thesis, an undergraduate, and unfortunately it was cut short, at least our time in person, because of the pandemic. It was just a couple of months, and after that we had to switch to Zoom, and it felt in a way it felt disconnected, and whatever path my cohort had towards envisioning what our graduation day would look like, what our final script would, the poems that it will have, it all changed in March, and definitely my writing was affected by that. I wrote a few things here. So, and poetry is born out of living, and I think had the experience, me being at Cal State Northridge, been a little different, the poem I'm about to read would be a little bit different. The good news is that I didn't fail Dorothy's class, nor did I fail Catherine Hake, who's here, and she's also an amazing author and a mentor. And it was with her class, with Catherine's class, it was the first time that I felt that I could expand my mind with exploring prose and the structure of writing and listening to the words. So I love you all, but this is a poem dedicated to Cesar and the professors that failed me, and homage to the Chicanx professors that reconnected me with indigenous Mexica roots. I am from Mexico City, grew up there, my family lives there. So this is a Spanglish poem and a little bit of Nahuatl, but it's titled Momachtiani, which is the Nahuatl word for student. Nomasi late at the Cal State Calmecac. The classroom door is closed. English only. Ni modo. Me quedo afuera. Ni notlalia donde se pueda. I read in silencio in a hallway under surveillance. Daydreaming of summer break, I'm missing out on lectures of white noise I've heard 1,000 times before. Tomorrow's the final, and I'm ditching it for a better trip. Profe inundado en papeleo, ¿cuántas más lecturas amargas tendré que soportar para vivir infeliz next to the sea? A student runs out of class in llanto. I enter mid-lecture. El profe asks me for a valid excuse y le digo, no encontré parking. Couldn't find any parking. He doesn't believe me. His PhD trained him to smell anís lacatini. He points me to the door and continues his post-colonial lecture. Stepping on Sesevitum ground, I walk out to seek a spot and kill some time with smoke. Nopal inquieto. Deambulo los pasillos en el atardecer y me vuelvo amigo de patos y tortugas. Cargo mochila llena de amochtli libretas, hojas en blanco rellenadas con tinta negra that make up strange words, scribbles to monolingual tongues, my thesis. Clutter Roman letters and white pages till they die in each other's breath. Espíritus de momachtianis desaparecidos por el Estado piden muerte al matador. Tu cara imperialista plasmada en mercadotecnia nos persigue en la red escolar. Mascota patriarcal, símbolo español, macho violador, once a matador, always a killer. Graduates through the generations arrojan rosas in your memory. Ninguna rosa es para los acribillados por tu espada. Momachtiani of the untenured Tlamatinime. 4 years and a half, I did my time. For a BA in creative bull, doing my mailbox sometime soon. Once at Lamikti, always at Lamikti. Momachtiani dreaming on Amatl. Uncuff my throat, I speak in tongues. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
I wanted to do this. All these people, I knew I was getting my ass kicked. Thank you, Yvonne. That was amazing. Seriously. Next person is Marcia de la O. Her new book, Creature, came out from Pitt Poetry Series this January. Her previous book, Every Ravening Thing, also from Pitt, came out in 2019. Antidote for Night won the 2015 Isabella Gardner Award and was published by BOA Editions. Her first book, Black Hope, was awarded the New Issues Press Poetry Prize, was published by New Issues Press. She holds an MFA in poetry from Vermont College and has published extensively in journals and anthologies, including 2 recent poems in The New Yorker and a poem selected by Tracy K. Smith for The Slowdown. Marcia Delon.
Dorothy, with deep love and appreciation and gratitude, and respect for all you've done for the poetry community, I know who the Barresians are. The poem I'm going to read is called LAPD, and it's a persona poem, so it can't have been easy to occupy that space, but she did it. LAPD. We are waylaid and slaughtered for our beauty. We rattle palm fronds, siren the sick limb in any airless night, cut it off. We kick high, correct clocks, and the poor on the stoop in their Nike shower shoes, cursing intractabilities. A still boy, who muttering to himself all morning paced the center divide, palsied, rope burned by exhaust, cooperates fully at our feet. We are the fuck that matters. We protect sightlines. We serve sightlines. Here lies. We jack conviction. Smile. Consent decree. All inconsolable people look the same. Wrung hair, eaten face, tears. Consent decree. All inconsolable people sound the same, like supernatural whale cries off the shiftless Pacific, plying April's migration routes north. Why do they home here? Instinct. Why, if not to save themselves, and blew the air and the hour of kicked down doors and the body camera turns us on. If only it showed our faces, we are that beautiful. We afterward, Los Angeles, we marry a jury of our peers. Your Honor, even when he walked backwards, then kneeled as instructed, with his hands on the back of his head as instructed, and lying prone as instructed, kept his hands on the back of his head as instructed. I was afraid as instructed for my life. No one is perfect here. We jack the need that fucks us up. We bruise wrists. We kick, drink, one wife, one husband at a time. We are transparent. Our faces no longer appear in the mirrors that shave us or put on our makeup. Call us carefully. Red siren skin, night's feedback loop. A service revolver is only as good as its lawyer. In San Pedro, Crenshaw, Montecito Heights, El Sereno, the valley of the shadow of the Death Word Mall, and the all-night plasma drop-in centers, we trouble slaughter. We carry your eviction. We are on your hands. Let it be on your head, our beauty, when we come riding, towing the line. Oh my God, Dorothy. Wow. In terms of my connection with the LAPD, I met them at age 19 while on my way to campus, waiting at the bus stop in my mostly Spanish-speaking community. It used to be a Jewish neighborhood, but that changed, and the only Jewish people left were very old. I knew I was in danger, and I was working very hard to deflect the possibility of violence. The violence, when it came, did not fall on me. The violence was sudden, practiced, shocking, and almost mechanical. Afterwards, I had to come to accept that sometimes a person puts himself in harm's way for a stranger. Sometimes a person puts his body on the line. So the poem I'm going to read is about when that happened. is called a grove of trees. The old women knew the men were police before I did, waiting for a bus when vice surrounded me, all dressed alike as though plain clothes had only one meaning. Of course I wasn't in my skin, small and tight like an immature fig, dense, a little black hole. When I finally figured how those men would use me if they forced me into their car. At first, I thought hand over the license and the cops go away. I didn't know what else to try. I wasn't the girl they were looking for, except I was. The old women saw before I saw. Thick-boned women with arms of slurry, women who pulled wire carts home from market twice a week all those years after their hearts broke with the news from Poland. Old women at 8 in the morning in our poor neighborhood, already done shopping at Boys Market, schlepping their carts loaded with potatoes and milk and Weber's bread. You can't reason with power. I didn't know an elderly Jewish man would cross the perimeter, walk right into the interrogation. He didn't have time to lift his mechanical voice box to the hole in his neck, and no time to speak before they struck him in the chest. He staggered back, still trying to raise his buzzing machine. I didn't know what the grandmothers intended in the wide morning light after the bones and bulldozers and years of grief. They formed a grove around us and did not speak. This is how grandmothers muster. Silence, iron eyes, not one leaf moving. This is how they meet force. Light came stronger. They waited in silence. I held still and did not look, forbidden to see their faces, forbidden to gaze on the LAPD, because looks can tilt shame to rage. The old women called on heart wires. We are your mothers too. And they were large, a grove of trees, the quiet from the leaves flowing onto street corners, onto the little knot of cops, the girl, the edges of the leaves disappearing into light. They never said a word, but everything I needed to know waited in their silence. It took decades to decipher. Grandmothers built a door with their minds, and then they helped me through it. I heard inside my body, daughter, get on the bus. And the light was blue and the air was chill. And the bus rolled up and the door swung open. Thank you.
So Elena Karina Byrne was going to read, and she could not be here, but I got an email, so she told me to read this. I don't know her, but I'd like to meet her. Anyways, I'm sure she's lovely. Dorothy Barresi is one of the best poets in the country and one of the coolest LA icons we can claim as our own. I have known her work for over 20 years now and envy those of you who get to hear her for the first time. Her work as it engages with the world, both internal and external, offers us a passionate body and mind, wholly engaged in understanding of what it means to be an artist, a mother, a wife, and a professor, of what it means to be a woman, to be human. Dorothy's work is fearless, uncompromising, and wholly inventive, even when, especially when, she challenges the truth. How this poet can master lyric and narrative, ignite playful joy while being deadly serious, I'll never know, except to say this is what it feels like to be alive. Thank goodness we have her poetry to keep us on our toes. With admiration and love, please join me in celebrating Dorothy. So thank you. I know she really wanted to be here, so I'm going to introduce our next reader, Lynn Thompson. Pardon?
Is she doing something for Quincy Troop tonight, I think? Yeah. So, a worthy project.
We'll take comments from the audience, it's fine. If your name's on the marquee. Okay, all right. Otherwise, just kind of, just kidding, just joking. Lynn Thompson is the former 2021 Los Angeles Poet Laureate and 2022 Poet Laureate Fellow of the Academy of American Poets. She is the author of 4 collections of poetry: Beg No Pardon, Start with a Small Guitar, Fretwork, winner of the 2019 Marsh Hawk Poetry Prize, and Blue on Blue Palette, which will be published by Boa Editions in April 2024. I like this audience, yes. The recipient of multiple awards and fellowships, including several Pushcart Prize nominations, Thompson sits on the boards of Poetry Foundation, Cave Canem, and Los Angeles Review of Books, and she is the most recent chair emerita of the Board of Trustees at Scripps College. And I was just talking to her. I didn't even know all this shit. Her recent work can be found or is forthcoming in Best American Poetry, New England Review, Black Warrior Review, Massachusetts Review, The Common, and Copper Nickel, among others. Lynn Thompson.
Thank you for that kind introduction. I was sitting there thinking, Dorothy, 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 follow the yellow brick road. I think we would follow Dorothy just about anywhere. And for the Monday night Barresians who are in force in the house, we've been working with Dorothy pretty much every Monday for over 20 years, and are better poets for it. We thank you. We love you. We're so glad to toil with you. I'm going to read Dorothy's amazing poem, Elegy for a First Husband, Cause of Death Unknown. A very brief marriage of secrets. Then we were private citizens again, the polite appearance of public cooperation. You drove me home from court along flooded roadways, though I cannot place where home was, only that you took me there. It was late April in New England, the air a buzzing timeline, a hallowed luminescence. But when had it rained? How deep had we gone into the hall of records to miss this particular wet shattering of wind and new-minted leaves and branches and mud littered to make every surface you drove by swerving slick? Up-cradled root balls asked some new permission of the sky. A group of grubby kids fished earthworms in knots from racing ditchwater as they balanced on an iron grate, shrieking. What were their chances? We receded from them. I did not know you well. We were young. I am surprised I had a home to go to in the end. I stepped out of your car into standing water and thanked you. My embarrassed decorum. I think I even waved as you drove away. 30 years later, I am told you are dead. The news arrives from a great distance without sentiment or elaboration, a dry postscript to a civics lesson, more or less. 30 years without a single word but dead between us. We were married once, 3 quick seasons of record heat and falling and freezing. There was no purity of form, no claim, no permission, no useful decorum, only the downed material of our time together. I don't have to tell you, I was half asleep the whole first half of my life. I stepped out of your car. A pock-marked moon was beginning to show, a stone fruit, and the seasonable cold unripening I was already wearing in my old loneliness again, my mutant couture. Trees dripped, the bright green air begging to be breathed. I did not look where I was going. My one good pair of black shoes ruined. It was a short marriage, 9 months, no children, lucky. I do not know why you chose me. I do not know the names of the other women you slept with, or how much scotch it took to pin your deeper secrets down. At the end of the day, you did not love me. Hardly a crime. I'm sorry I said I hated you for a while. You were just a little ahead of me, rising when I had barely opened my eyes. I was a newborn, crying, almost formless thing. You dropped me off at some apartment or another, did not wave back. Without ceremony, delivered me to the life I live now. Thank you. And down the late blind drive you spun, water flashing, flaring. And because I chose an elegy to represent Dorothy, I thought I'd read the elegy I wrote for my brother who passed this past December. Redwood and Frangipani. Perhaps you know, as I did not, one grief is not the same as another. One loss may take place before sunrise, another when the sun is setting on the Pacific. One thinks, I thought, the lesson of a first loss is a template for all that follow. It is not. Missing the arabesque of a dancer isn't the same as missing the trill of an upright bass. Can you ever compare the supple balletics of Misty Copeland with the kaleidoscope that was Charlie Mingus? Even sitting in one place, can you compare Beckway's delicate frangipani to a California redwood? The longer we are lucky to live, the more we will have to mourn, differently and sometimes diffidently. And although his bodily incantations have quieted now, our father, our brother, our uncle, our much beloved, is still, as was his wont, teaching. You may miss me in a particular way. This is why my particular will always be with you. Thank you.
I didn't want to do it while she was reading. Our next reader is Suzanne Lummis. She was born in San Francisco and grew up in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Her collections include Idiosyncrasies, 1984, In Danger, 1999, and Open 24 Hours, 2014, which received the Blue Lynx Poetry Prize from Lynx House Press. Her poems have appeared in Plowshares, New Ohio Review, Hudson Review, Antioch Review, Plume, and The New Yorker. She was the co-editor of the Pacific Coast Poetry Series from Beyond Baroque Books, editor of its first publication, Wide Awake, Poets of Los Angeles and Beyond. Lummis was a 2018-2019 City of Los Angeles Fellow and endowment from the Cultural Affairs Department, allowing mid-career visual artists and writers to complete major projects. Suzanne Lummis.
So, I began looking for my Dorothy Barresi poem that I was going to read. I started with this. This is a good book. They're all good books. Rouge Poem. So, mostly, I liked all of them. I'd read a poem and I'd go, oh, this is a good one. I'm going to read this one. I'd turn the page and go, oh, this is a good one. I'm going to read this one. And I didn't find any that I didn't want to read. So I lit on one, though, that just got me thinking. See, I have a distant memory of the 1950s. I was 1 in 59. Okay, and I'm lying. Trying to lie about my age again. Never works. I can never pull it off. But I have a distant memory of the 50s, and this poem began to invoke things that I hadn't thought of for a long time. For instance, my little friend and me, how we would sit around, you know how most kids tell ghost stories, and we'd get ourselves really scared by saying, in Russia, there's this red button, and if somebody goes by and they push the button, they just feel like pushing the button because maybe they're in a bad mood, this bomb falls right on us. And then we get more and more scared. And I thought of this years later, and I thought, yeah, because if Russia was going to attack the USA, they would start out by bombing the Sierra Nevada mountains and kill a lot of deer and chipmunks and take out an entire chairlift. That's where it would start. So this is called 50s Song, or We Are All Born Under Eisenhower. Unto the altar of Argyle, unto the Lenny Bruce of Nod, unto the spondy of babies, unto the lawnmower of fear, unto the bungalow and Tudor, the salt box, the ranch house, the colonial, unto the Windsor knot of work weeks, unto the pennies of Sears, unto the saps and hipsters, the stubborn, the confused, unto the merely implicated, unto the Enola Gay in the dandelion field, dandelions blowing through, unto the Edsel of Vietnam, unto Lucky Strikes, unto the bowling alley of family love, which is none of your goddamn business. Unto red meat and milk. Yeah, that's so cool. We love that poem. They're all good, though. I wish it was longer. The only regret, I wanted to go on and on and on. Okay, well, to help out Beyond Baroque and do a preview of a reading that's coming up March 9th, a noir celebration of this journal that comes out of, who wants to guess? If you know, don't guess. Only people who don't know can guess. Where do you think this journal named Pratik generates from? Where do you think it rises up from? How about, you know, Lynn, I'm pretty sure. Who else? How about somebody there in the fourth row? What do you think? What do you think?
The Amazon?
What?
The Amazon. The Amazon.
Oh, the Amazon? Oh, that's a good guess. It's not right, but it's a very good guess. It's close in a way. It comes out of a Kathmandu. No. Eventually, somebody would have guessed that. And it is a noir. It's called Darkness and Style. It is a collection of fiction, nonfiction, memoir, and of course poetry. And this poem came about because a beloved cat of mine chewed up my best pair of heels. Only one of them. The other one was fine. But so for a while, that cat wasn't as beloved as he'd been before. But it was okay. I forgave him. But in order to console myself, I decided to write a poem about a woman that I would have been in another life, or this life, actually, could have been this life. And she would have worn these heels. And because it's noir, of course, she comes to you think she comes to, who wants to guess? Does she come to a good end or a bad end? Yeah, we know. Okay. All right, red heels. Named Fool and You Fool, they starred in the usual stories. Phone number, lipstick across a mirror, dark corridor, flames snapping from a silver lighter. This one just wants to hook the low catch of a bar stool and take a load off. That one wants to swing from a black stocking toe somebody's old-fashioned girl. Call them get down and stood up. Something chiseled them sleek. Those ice-pick heel sharp toes must have a point to make. What could they love? That one, a glass paperweight with a red tear at its core. TEAR as in weep, as in rip. This one, its image in the ladies' room full-length mirror at a Greyhound rest stop cafe. Call them Cracker Jacks and Jackknife, clicking their own jukeboxy code, talking to each other, to themselves. This one wants to slow dance among the cigarette butts. That one wants to slide in the back of a cab and hear her yell, "Drive!" They just want to slip down the shadow side of a boarded-up cinema and come out on the same 2 feet. And she who traveled inside them, Mr. Wrong Turn You, going my way. Call her unclaimed, unsolved, the coroner's cool and rested barefoot girl. But oh, those high heels, heart-stroked, color of deep aortal sangre. They just want to keep dancing.
Are we going to, Patty Saburn's up next. I'm going to introduce her and then we're going to. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to do a quick introduction. So next person's going to come through magic. Okay? From the 50s to the 2020s. Patty Saburn has published 5 collections of poems. Threshold Delivery, Finishing Line Press, 2019. Perfecta, What Books Press, Glass Table Collective, 2014. Hilarity, which won the Green Rose Prize given by New Issues Press, Western Michigan University, 2009. Mechanical Cluster, Ohio State University Press, 2002. And Diasporatic, Helicon 9 Editions, 1998, which won the 1997 Marianne Moore Poetry Prize and the 2000 American Library Association's Notable Book Award. Her work has appeared in numerous anthologies and publications, including the Bloomsbury Anthology of Contemporary Jewish American Poetry, Wide Awake, Poetry of Los Angeles and Beyond, the Paris Review, Poetry, New England Review, and Boston Review. She is a professor at California State University, Long Beach. Patty Saban.
Wonderful. So I'm sorry to not be there, and I'm sorry that you have to see my giant face. Very happy to be part of celebrating Dorothy, who will know made her become my friend. It was effective stalking, and she did become my friend. And I've loved her work since her very, very first book. I'm excited to read the poem that I wanted. I was ready to sort of throw down to get this poem, to tell you the truth. It's from Ruth Pope, and it's called Poem to Some of My Recent Purchases. So, durable goods, sweet and crude, I calculate your worth by the glory available, divide by dollars spent, my relief, the exact nature and angle of my pleasure. Abide with me, things say. We won't leave you here alone. Lipstick, pantyhose, Downy Heron, A-line cashmere skirt, mid-heel spectator pumps, and lately, a high-amp juice extractor for vegetables and fruit. I choose you because each day, for 662 years, my grandparents ate bologna sandwiches, and then Hoover came in and things got really bad. 900 years of onions and reflex courage. 5,648 years of war bosses, headbusters, union dues, babies. Fiorello LaGuardia leading the national anthem at Yankee Stadium, and no roses or raises ever. Responsibility. My dad's dead dog when he was growing up, schlepping boy's life door to door. Dog tired. My second cousin on my mother's side. Makeshift gratitude, my mother on cold school mornings, slapping mustard around in her bathrobe, cigarette atilt in her lips. She made the bologna sandwiches I was destined to unwrap. Bracelet, earrings, tanzanite toe ring. I liked Peridot better, but they didn't have my size. If I never buy anything, how will I distract myself? How will I weigh myself down when the last winds come to find me unworthy with wailing, gnashing, and proclaiming, by which I am sucked up and bare as a soup bone and butcher paper thrown free? The big wars are over, but the small ones never end. What shall I save? In my personal bedroom community, the babies are not always kissed or fed. Boys murder boys. Politicians dance with underage girls named Absolute Value or Agnes Day, while buses loaded with dead pensioners leave on the hour for Indian gaming in Palm Springs. What I am saying, my dear, dear purchases, is that I refuse to be chronically wistful. I tear open your clear wrappings with my teeth in the front seat of my car. I love you. And if not you, precisely, I adore the moment the salesgirl hands you over as if preferring the sunset and all its glowing fruits. Jesus is my homeboy, her lovely tattoo tells me, and my son will be safe if I will only pray. Bracelet, lampshade, verse, perfume, cocoa by Chanel, lemongrass votive candles, too pretty to burn. Am I to understand my sarcasm will not help me? In the ascendant American paradigm, I leave Macy's with an armload of usable truth in a world of plenty. The sparrows do not line up in their sniper nests against me. My credit rating holds. I buy not to escape the world, but to draw it nearer, to build more world up around me. Bracelet, perfume, lampshade, purse, jewel hoard, dream hoard, cast your spell. Consume me as you do. Take me home, where I might hold you in my lap a while, now that I am often afraid. And I don't know why, honestly, this poem kind of reminds me of Dorothy. I don't know. It's called Against Weltschmerz. Today I am relying on the 7 Greeks for solace. The 7 Greeks and leftovers. Broccoli, soggy chopped salad, and half an avocado. A serpentine gesture of olive oil and 3 drips of soy sauce. Archilochus is a favorite. And I think Diogenes and I would have spent many hours at Sid's bar on Old Newport Boulevard in Costa Mesa before Pest Inspector rightly closed it. I have come to debase the coinage, he wrote. If you do not find that funny, you probably have no basis for friendship. That is not a threat. I am not the only friend out there, and we each offer a different range of trills and bird songs. You know, I am fond of the common loon. Its eerie aria, not for everyone. Archilochus disapproves of Thracian updos and claims the fox's 11 tricks don't compare with the hedgehog's 1 trick. I like hedgehogs, the Greeks, and leftovers. On this day, I believe the world weariness will fade, much as dew fades. I am also fond of dew, how it is reliable and ephemeral, all at once. Thank you. Love you, Dorothy.
I forgot one of my sermon part. I just want to say this thing. I don't know who the gods are who make the poet laureate, but I just like to nominate. I just want Dorothy's name to be in the decision. Whoever's. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was real. Anyways, I would just like her name to be considered for poet laureate of Los Angeles. Whenever that comes up, I just want you to know that we talk about it. I think you'd be an amazing contributor to the culture of Los Angeles. So I think you've already done it, but it would be amazing. So there. I'm going to introduce the next person, Kim Young, who also agrees with me on that idea. She's a writer, teacher, and author of 2 books of poetry, Night Radio, winner of the Aga Ali Shahid Poetry Prize, and finalist for the Kate Tufts Discovery Award, and Tigers, a collection of prose poems. Her writing has appeared or is forthcoming in Alta, Los Angeles Review of Books, Tri-Quarterly, the Cincinnati Review, and elsewhere. For many years, she edited the literary journal Chaparral, which features interviews and new writing from Maggie Nelson, Jericho Brown, Victoria Chang, and many others. She is currently at work on a hybrid book of memoir, journalism, and biography on the late poet Lee McCarthy. Kim Young.
Oh, it's so good to be here. I can't really see you, but I know you're there. Wow, the readings have been so incredible. We could just read all night from Dorothy's books. And I was just sitting there and like taking in all the notes, you know, the dark humor, the world weariness, the desire for, you know, connection. Yeah, I'm just blown away, moved, stimulated, just like it was, you know, in 1999 when I walked into that classroom. I had walked into 2 other creative writing classrooms and was like, no, not this one, until I found Dorothy. The other thing I just wanted to say is, you know, this is the second event I've been to at Beyond Baroque where we're celebrating another writer. I came when they were dedicating the Wanda Coleman Room, and you know, this thing we share, like we need each other, right? This life is of making art isn't easy. The disappointment and setbacks that we all have to endure. We need each other, right? We need to celebrate each other. And Dan and I were walking over and talking about how good it felt to come here and celebrate someone that means so much to us, and that this place is a tradition for doing that is even more special. So Dorothy, you know, you just mean everything to me. And the greatest compliment I think I was ever given was when someone said that they could hear that, you know, that you were my mentor. So I'm going to read a poem about motherhood, one of your poems about motherhood that echoes through my mind all the time. and then I'll read one of my own, and this one is called Grendel's Mother. Every mother is a monster. If you don't know that, you don't know anything about love. And what did you think she would do? The great mare woman under heavy-booted oceans when the death cry of the boy she made in her own body reached her. And she went marauding along the wolf slopes, the dangerous fen paths, because she could not kill somebody now. A grieving mother is a walker in the wasteland, mindful of misery, wilder than the sea. In her arms, howling, she cradles the ring bones and sprung gore of her son's severed arm until it is mercy that cuts her throat, as we knew, finally, it must be, by some blonde prince incidental to this story. Her blood melts the prince's sword. That drowned lullaby keeps us burning. Every good mother is terrible, and God loves a good story. A woman must learn this at her own risk. There is a disturbance under the sea. Dorothy Barresi. Okay, and this is just going to read the title poem for Tigers, which is dedicated to my daughter. When the tigers come, you might drive and drive, inhaling hits of smoke from the mouths of shoeless men, pulling long moo-moos from garbage cans, rolling your own cigarettes from tobacco tins. When the tigers come, you might crush all your Simon and Garfunkel albums and stop taking showers. You might throw away the fun girl who used to sing at dinner. When the tigers come, you might run naked, believing that if you've rid yourself of every last remnant, they'll have nothing to take from you. Once the tigers have come, everything will begin to look like tiger. Your love of whales, the classroom, your dope, the small way you believe you can go to Reed College, your love of whales, the total. I want to tell you, when the tigers come, meet tiger with tiger. I want you to learn the tiger growl, the tiger smell. I want to teach you to stalk like a tiger. I want to make a tiger mask for the back of your head so the tigers won't attack from behind. I want to tell you that the tigers will become gentle, but the tigers, they aren't gentle. You can only open your tiny broken life. You can crack open the back door when the rain starts. You can come down into the wild fennel, into this long stretch of time, these days like little pieces, the smell of sage, the way the wind moves through anyone's hair. When the tigers come, you can only meet them as you meet every single morning. You start so early. You look like tiger looks, eyes fixed on each moment, and you've always called me back here to the sound of your own singing, your hand pulling me into the yard, back from all the ways I teach you to run from tiger. But tiger's right here, all along, with tiger breath, tiger whiskers, and up close, the sound is not a growl. The sound is all animal, and tiger can sense us. You're ready. I can see that now. You always have been. Thank you. Okay, I'm introducing Dorothy. Who wrote the Beyond Baroque? Her bio, it's so wonderful. I'm going to read the bio they wrote for you, Dorothy. It's such a good one. Though born in New York, Dorothy is a poet and scholar who made Los Angeles her home. She's been a mentor to aspiring writers and students at Cal State Northridge through her tenure in the English department as a professor of English, of literature, and creative writing. And as an active poet in the literary scene of Los Angeles for several decades, her poetry has been anthologized in Poetry Los Angeles, Reading the Essential Poems of the City, and numerous literary journals. She served as a judge of the Los Angeles Times Book Award in Poetry and has published 5 collections, including What We Did While We Made More Guns, Post-Rapture Diner, All of the Above, and is that all of them? Yes, and Rouge Pulp, of course. Okay, let's welcome the main event, Dorothy Barresi.
I actually thought I'd have more time to just sit there and listen and enjoy people reading. I swear that I've never enjoyed those poems of mine more than when I just heard them read by other people. That was really a treat. That was incredible. Thank you so much to Dan and Kim and Mariano and Quentin, everybody here for coming, of course, but thank you so much to the organizers. I'm really, really touched and moved, and I think we know that making art is hard, and it's lonely, and it can also test your emotions, and I think that just having a group of people like you here tonight, having this held here at Beyond Baroque, it's so stunning. It's so affirming to me. I did want to say, however, that I think it might be more appropriate if I was like 90 or something and had, you know, some more books under my belt. And what's that? That's what I was going to say. If we could all agree to come back for that, I would very, very much appreciate it. I'm 66, so do the math. We'll meet here, and yeah, thank you. We'll probably do it like early in the day, you know. I have spent many recent nights working on some new stuff, trying to fix them up for tonight, and you know, get some things ready. And I was going to start with one poem, and I'm actually going to start with something different. And I've got to calm my son down. I heard your laughter, but I didn't know exactly where you were. He's going to help me with this poem. Yeah. So I think a lot of us were. Who am I joking that I think this has to be higher for me? Is it? But maybe is it okay? Okay. So you know, there was much news today. And some of it maybe made you feel elated, and then some of it maybe made, you know, the bottom of your stomach drop a bit. And so we heard today that Alexei Navalny died, and it's just a painful moment in history, I think. And Dante was taught there. He got a Fulbright, and so he taught in Russia for a year, and so we were able to go visit. Phil and I met up with Dante in Kaliningrad, and it was an astonishing experience to be able to go to Kaliningrad and Moscow and St. Petersburg. Now, Dante is gay. Is that all right if I say that? And so the whole time he was living in Russia that year, we were petrified because it's not a safe place to be. But it turned out to be, I think, a really amazing year in many ways, and we got to go. And Dante and I got to take a long walk through Kaliningrad, and I noticed on our long walk that there were lots and lots of gardens, that every house, we're just walking through regular neighborhoods, every house had a vegetable garden. And I commented on that, and Dante told me that, well, they need those gardens. These people are barely making ends meet. And these were, you know, houses that look sort of like middle-class houses, whatever. And with the corruption, the money does not filter down, and these people strain for the essentials. And so they have these gardens, right? So I'm going to read, it's a list poem. It's called Post-Soviet Garden, Kaliningrad. And then it's a list poem about what I've seen in this particular garden. And then you're going to hear why Dante is here, who speaks Russian. Post-Soviet Garden, Kaliningrad. Cucumbers for pickling, 2 rows. Tool shed. 8 planks missing and a roof skin of lavender and gray lichen. Inchling potatoes, turnips, eggplant. 5 cabbage, each tight, bright head served on a platter of darker leaves. Here and there, a beet shouldering up, gruff, unpaired thing. 3 rooks, very loud. This is always the way with rooks. One life is never enough. Still, work drags on. Onions, 1 stinging row. Dead telephone vines looped through an iron fence's broken design. 1 clay saucer emitting a froth of mosquitoes from an inch of stinking rainwater. In attendance, a work glove bent stiff to the lip. No KGB assassins, no secret lovers of Stalin or counter-revolutionaries from the Dung Collective spreading the common good. no Decembrists, capitalists, Bolsheviks, fifth column, no descendant of the glorious space dog Laika. You'd think she was the only space dog, Laika, who died within hours of her launch, a one-way mission. No.
There was Белка and Strelka, Pчелк, Mushka, Чернушка, Звездочка, Ветерок, Угольок.
That sounded so good. You should just keep going. All those names, okay. Strays, trained to lie down in smaller and smaller cages, sometimes for 20 days at a time on Earth. One wheelbarrow banked. One amber cat conducting surveillance from the weeds, only its ticking tail giving it away. 3 old Sovok rose bushes, red, of course. 1 black hose, 2 axe handles, unpolished, waiting against the shed. 2 mole holes for gassing. 1 anthill, that tiny, extinct volcano. Thank you. This is called the Sea of Galilee. This is the Sea of Galilee. This is for Dante. And not just because he helped me just now. The Sea of Galilee. 1. From every heaven, the view is the same. I just realized that I wanted to thank everybody individually by name who had I'll do that at the end, okay? So sorry about that. I'm so nervous about getting going. Okay, I'm getting to that part. The thank yous are coming. More thank yous. The Sea of Galilee. 1. From every heaven, the view is the same. 2. The night my son Dante came out to me, he was perfectly nonchalantly himself. You know I'm not the straightest guy in the world. Eyes on his screen, smiling because he was home early for Christmas break, comedically jazzing the last term paper, 2 paragraphs to go on neutrinos or the economics of scale or the post-industrial processes of the soil. And more, it seemed to me, alive in his achieved body than any stuttering theologian or breakable boy god destined to be held up by 3 nails in one of those binding rituals exported from the defeated kingdoms of men. Yes, it was a good night. He was his own and whole. The night air good in our lungs, the serried firs bowing wildly at the windows beck and call, something scratching at the glass. Thank you, I said. I'm honored, I said. 3. Did we become human gradually or all at once? The question is posed on a podcast I half hear driving home from yet another routine cancer screening that promises light lingering discomfort, along with unirretrievable memories of my father's last dispatch through the blind turns, the bone-shrill death instruction he was chosen to receive, quieted only by the morphine line's light click. Then the whispering to himself, secrets, or else he was speaking directly to the annulling dusk in its own language, without fury for once, or dismay, or the melancholy requirements of capitulation. His breath, I remember, was mysterious, human-smelling, like rich soil. But when I put my ear close to his lips, I could not make him out. 4. Later, between bouts of online shopping, I look up human, becoming, ? I am forever looking up things later. To discover that anthropologists posit skull size as slow revelation, our incremental, measurable, extremely hard, future-facing history. Believers, on the other hand, hold that humanness displays itself instantly in the moment the difference between our soul's cost and its value is revealed, a sacred bafflement. Late December's star-crossed bargain we did not strike, but bear somehow, having never fully understood the terms of the engagement. 5. Boys are falling behind, the New Yorker says, not just in math, science, reading, but outperformed as a matter of course 3-1 by eager girls hunched over desktops, speeding their number 2 pencils across fresh, unlined realities, graduating from college at twice the rate of men. Decades now. And a certain segment of these men just keep falling further and further behind parity. Excuse me. Leading social scientists to advance an array of possible causes. High technology, outsourcing, America's culture-wide shift from brawn to brains, or maybe they muse, maybe blame lies not with the much lamented muscular death of manufacturing, but with feminism's partially unintended and wholly unexpected success in breaking the imperviousness of masculine self-belief in just a little over 100 years. Regardless of cause, experts agree fatal histories are being made and measured in upticks. Rage drinking, overdose deaths, suicide or suicidal ideation, homicidal ambition, a hardening of racial and gender hatreds, no matter how grotesque or desperate or desolating, combined with the swallowing of falsehoods whole, along with daily pain meds. Indeed, a growing number of these men are leaving the workforce permanently in their 40s and 50s to play video games and conduct seething online research instead. 6. I'll take him apart, I say to my son. Point him out to me, the little fucker, I mean it. I will take him apart. 7. In December, when love perforce decrees we buy presents separately, then reunite in the food court of a throbbing retail space. This is the Topanga Mall. Then reunite in the food court of a throbbing retail space lit like a temple for the epochal rites of money changing hands for goods and services, Target to Louis Vuitton, Tiffany to Limited Express, and for the 10,000 voices of shoppers to be moved like capillary blood closer to the surface of our purchasing power, our heat and our glee, Chanel to Dick's, Macy's to drab, exquisite Burberry. In December, contentment has no enthronement ceremonies planned for us. But there are ziggurats of pastel gelato, sweating under double-pane safety glass, and garlic ribeye at the churrascaria, skewered into long lines for $15. Long lines, not a seat anywhere. 8. Which boy, I say again. Jesus, Mom, Dante says, forget it. I shouldn't have told you. He lofts a box of whiskey glasses he's bought for his boss over the heads of the coursing Carol-mad mob. I mean what he says. You're going to beat up a 14-year-old kid for calling me a faggot when he's showing off for his friends? Then unsteady laughter. Believe me, I've been called worse. Then quieter. I have to try to make myself taller, tilt my ear to his mouth. He's worried they'll uncover some hidden weakness and kill him for it by study hall. Some of the gifts we bought that day were not returned. Or should I be honest for once and say, this is fear. I made it in my body. 9. When those tiki Nazi bastards chanted Jews will not replace us in Virginia, state named for the bespoke virgin who must have died when she heard her son with his crew made water walkable during their epic hang at the Sea of Galilee. Being all together boys, show-offs really, given God's flair for boom. I thought of Mary and the role she'd been forced to play as first New Testament girl, made mother by non-consensual ghost sex. And I worried, not for the first time, that she'd likely divined long before her oldest son's last upward glance of agony and tortured capitulation to the absent father, what his fate would cost her every second of every day until her own death came due. Which brought me back to Virginia and those acneed, sexless creeps in khakis, those bad readers and discount conspiracy droolers, racist future wearers of adult diapers. Did one of their mothers, hearing what her son had done, take a soft sip of her jewel later and trembling whisper, "Forgive him, for he knows not what he does"? The working definition of hope, a way to go on despite the truth. 10. Somewhere I read to half forget it seems, that the biblical city of Galilee once boasted roving bandit gangs that would kill you as soon as look at you, a phrase invented to keep our eyes lowered. Boom. Now it's crawling with those all-inclusive beach resorts so popular with honeymooners. Thank you. Thank you very much. Dante did kind of keep me from going and making a scene at the food court. I was determined I was going to go find that little guy, and that would have made for some interesting television on the news of a mom being pulled off of a teenager. Probably wouldn't be the first time, actually. Okay, so this is called How the Story Goes. You will recognize details of this story, although some of it's fictionalized, but you will recognize parts of this because it was inspired by Jose Huizar, our councilman who was arrested and now has been convicted and sentenced. He was on the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. As a matter of fact, he chaired it. His section of the city of Los Angeles included a big swath of downtown. So it gave him tremendous power during a sort of boom and building of downtown, rebuilding of downtown, and he became incredibly corrupt, incredibly efficiently, quickly. How this story goes. A handsome councilman was arrested in Los Angeles. His commitment to honest services fraud, that's the phrase, honest services fraud, arose organically with such silk pocket square proficiency over time, it seems the first and second words simply forgot they'd gone to public school with the third. Power's predicate, mildly surprised. In all honesty, I service fraud. When you know, you know. There's always more meat on the bone. In truth, by exacting light, the man was always just passably handsome. A former altar boy who grew up poor in Los Angeles, he achieved a heightened sense of sexual beguilement via private hops to Vegas and red envelopes of fat cash he stashed under his wife's bed at the beginning and end of each month. He wasn't a goon. He simply needed to treat himself for all the hard work he'd done pricing out local contractors and their crews, and by extension, those crews' families, in favor of billionaire high-rise cabals who know how to get luxury zoned using preening runts as their shills. I know that that's over the top. I just couldn't. Once I wrote it, I had to include it. He's not that short. Last week at sentencing, the convicted councilman drew a 13-year bid. Hangdog, more than a little bloated. Maybe the blue suit he wore wasn't even his. As the Times intimated, the problem with bribery is most of us can't afford it. But his wife looks fantastic crying. Lucky her. She flipped for the prosecution from the start. And isn't Los Angeles taller now? World of seams and wishes for more steel, more glittering windows, shaping downtown into the bold, clean-lined building millennials may pay handsomely to live in. Isn't temptation funny? Asking the same question of us over and over. What's my take? Okay, perhaps an in-house fitness club, a saltwater pool, 2 screening rooms, secure biosensitive entry, ample parking, complimentary valets, and a dog washing station for every rooftop garden promenade. Ask yourself, what would you do if you have that option? Actually, of the 4 buildings that he took enormous money, enormous bribes for, it was crazy, offshore money laundering. There's a developer in China who is still on the lam, who the U.S., the feds want to bring here to prosecute in this. At any rate, God bless him. Okay. I want to read some poems that, because this was poetry in the world, I wanted to really I wanted to choose poems that turn my attention outward, for the most part, and towards the world. And so for the last couple of years, I've been writing poems about the Exide lead contamination of a huge portion of East LA. It's a few miles, you could say, east of downtown. If you don't know too much about Exide, I'm not going to go into too much, but I will tell you this. This problem started in the 90s. It was overseen, i.e. overlooked, by the EPA, the DTSC, Department of Toxic Substance Control. They joined powers and failed utterly. It is such a problem, this lead contamination, that just on January 10th, the NBC Nightly News featured a whole segment on some of the neighborhoods in East LA that are suffering from this lead contamination. I'm going to read just a quick thing from the LA Times. For decades, inspectors from the California Department of Toxic Substances Control dutifully recorded a long list of environmental infractions at the Vernon Battery Recycling Facility, now owned by Exide. This is from 2015, by the way. This has all been closed down and deconstructed, and there's a whole thing, and I'm doing a chapbook on this. They described fluid gushing from a wastewater treatment system 10 years ago. They saw battery acid flowing into a manhole, lead waste stored in open containers, and enormous cracks in flooring meant to contain hazardous chemical spills. Year after year, state inspectors documented illegal activity during annual walkthroughs of the 15-acre plant, and yet somehow nothing was done. You'll hear in the poems that I read that some things are done, but done abysmally. And so it continues to be a problem, if not maybe one of the largest problems alongside homelessness, I think, that Los Angeles faces now going forward. So I'm just going to read a few poems about Exide, and just to say quickly, you might be saying, like, well, where did the lead come from? What's that all about? So they were a battery recycling plant, and they would literally get thousands upon thousands of car batteries, millions of car batteries, also other batteries, the kind of batteries that we use in our homes. And they would go about crushing them to extract the lead out of them and reuse the lead to make new batteries. Now, you can imagine that would take an enormous amount of very circumspect care and cleaning and containment, and none of that happened. None of that happened, right? And I'm just going to read a part of this first poem because I've read it at some other readings, but it sort of gives you the scope here. It's called Given To, and the little epigraph here is Exide. It's from the Times. Exide battery recycling plant contaminates 10,000 homes in poorest Los Angeles neighborhoods. Nets no jail time. By the way, that was from some years ago. Now they believe there's at least 250,000, not the 100,000 residents they thought affected, now 250,000 residents. They thought back in the day that it was just Huntington Park, Vernon, Mayfield, East LA, Commerce, Bell, and Boyle Heights. Now they've included parts of Monterey Park and Montebello, and it's just astonishing. So, okay, so here we go. Given to leukemia, asthma, lung cancer, developmental delays, certainly a sweeping category. Given to the sensation of falling while seated or on landings, nosebleeds, soft bones, premonitions, sores on the tongue, on the roof of the mouth, a membranous caul or grit skin. Damage as relates to the pleasure of distinguishing sweet from sour. Think of your front yard as a dirty needle. Think of your daughter as an addict in her sandbox. Skin cancer, brain cancer, renal leakage, across the viscous gel of the eye, a faint, floating, illegible scrawl, untranslatable as vision. Edema, joint pain, reading delays, blood cancer mets to the bone, peripheral distortions, who or what is almost seen at the small corners requires guesswork. Higher infant mortality rates, consistent with per capita income. Correlation is not causation, Exide Technologies maintains for the deposition Given To. This poem goes on, and I had to update how many homes have been cleaned. Of the many more than 10,000 homes now that they believe have been, or they know have been contaminated by this lead, we're talking about the yards, we're talking about the patch of grass between the sidewalk and the street, we're talking about front and back yards, we're talking about in their houses, right? So far, only 3,370 homes have been cleaned. In many cases, especially with some of the studies that USC has been doing, that cleaning has been a complete failure. USC. That's right, I heard about that. As a matter of fact, I had a student who lived there, and he talked about he said a lot of people did not necessarily want their yards removed because what the city wanted to do was just pave everything. And so there was this complete sort of disconnect. But even given that, they weren't going down far enough, they weren't taking out enough, they weren't going everywhere. And well, you'll hear. There's. All right, this poem's called. It's brand new. It's got handwritten stuff on it. It's called Frequently Asked Answers. 50 baby teeth collected from 43 children living within several miles of the now shuttered Exide battery recycling plant tested positive for lead. There is no safe lead level for a baby's tooth. The higher the lead in the tooth, the higher in the child's brain, bones, kidneys. Lead crosses the placenta, as it turns out. When a baby is born, the mother holds it in her arms. She whispers, as tenderly as possible, an introduction to the world. Shh, shh, shh. Don't cry. Shh, shh, shh. This time is called the golden hour. Under the pillow, you and I once left the first lost piece of ourselves for money. I wanted to say the golden hour, if any of you have had a child lately or know someone who has, they do this whole skin-to-skin thing immediately. And I took a note here. During this period, during the golden hour, right after the child is born, skin-to-skin contact between mother and baby is critical to promote attachment, reduce stress for both mother and baby, and to help baby adapt to life outside of the womb. And I thought how ironic, given the fact that we're talking about lead contamination having already traversed the placenta. Death improvises. Weird halo reverb, ground glass sequins, double wide rat traps outside liquor store doors. Health department grade A. Brazen. This is Los Angeles. Fuck you, it's sunny here. And by the way, a poison job is still a full-time job. Even the EPA, government body of considerable heat and pressure, is cool with blood in the urine, ash drifts on sidewalks, wastewater upwellings in schoolyards, daycares, wasted air. You might as well breathe as be cremated here. Shift change, Exide. I wanted to enter into the, because obviously the people who worked there, the thousands of people who worked at Exide over the years were, sort of in the first line of exposure. So I imagine because this kind of contamination can result in greater number of miscarriages and stillbirths, I wanted to place one of the workers sort of in that space there. Shift change. You bled through your uniform once, a gushing darkness from the world's seemingly infinite supply. You were 15 minutes short of shift change, 6 weeks into your pregnancy, 8 minutes from the outer rank of toppling temporary employee wash stalls. Everyone more or less temporary here. The cramps that doubled you over emptied you by half. 2 days later, back on the line. This next poem is called On the Surface of Things, and the title has a footnote, so I'm going to read the footnote first, and then I'll read the poem. On the Surface of Things. Footnote. Dirt excavated from contaminated yards was often piled into hills so high they resembled ancient burial mounds at the ends of streets, at the crossroads of mitigation, which might also be another name for history itself, when death is permitted to sit openly in the blowing heat and sunshine. In 2015, Exide Technologies swallows the cost they did this to avoid jail time, of course, swallows the cost of partially, ineptly, almost never actually really removing lead-contaminated soil from front yards of thousands of homes in 7 neighborhoods governed below the surface by barter and sheer regulatory chance. LA neighborhoods where anyone after work might, in the intimacy of the ordinary conduct of parking their Corolla at the curb and sighing or cursing, exhausted, and humming the last half-decent love song they'd heard on the radio, 20 years ago, and shrugging sidelong against Pacific thermals, browning out the ryegrass and the goddamn bougainvillea, walk across the contrivances of a life they'd misidentified as private. Going, coming to term. The intimacy of ordinary conduct builds a child from blood, breath, soul, bone, clumsy honesty, bad lines of credit, sweet glory, etc. Now this child, fetus, completely blind, nearly a revenant of the air, must possess the wisdom to recognize instantly a temporary home and latch on for dear life. Naturally, we would not accuse the child who lets go of lacking devotion. Lawyers representing residents affected by the battery recycling plant's decades-long lead and arsenic spill argues that grasping of a different sort lives at the heart of the company's latest bankruptcy bid, and that its disaster capitalism seems to tighten even as the spectacle of ill-dividing cells grows. 2, grief is a devotion at home in us, turning its brass house keys somewhere below the breastbone. Grief is not a place where agony can be solved. In the end, there is no act so grave one forfeits citizenship there without capital or account. I did not check my time, so I'm okay. Exide actually put a bid in for bankruptcy 3 times. This was a way, obviously, to get out of their real responsibilities. The company was allowed to dissolve, and even ultimately, by the way, to abandon that the site of the plant in Vernon, to walk away from it with no more financial responsibility to pay for any of it. And they did pony up some ridiculously small amount. They received no jail time. And it's one of the more egregious examples, I think, of that kind of I don't even know what to call it. The corruption is just off the charts. By the way, also, I just want to say they bought that plant in the aughts, I believe. The plant had been there for longer than Exide owned it, but Exide owned plants all around the country, and everywhere that they owned countries, they are having the same problems. So this is called lobe and alveoli, which is a part of the lung, and it's called the bankruptcy is not stayed. And when a bankruptcy is not stayed, it's been granted. Lobe and alveoli, the bankruptcy is not stayed. It is official. Exide Technologies, henceforth referred to simply as blank, ceases to exist as business furnace and runnel of lead, proud history-denying concern, now formally dissolved into parkway, waterway, backyard, lobe and alveoli, blood breath, nerve sway, fetal sac, all the crossings over. Only daydreaming, could have settled the dust quicker. Blank is gone. We can curse the unforgivable by its given name no longer. It has been released from deep time and the near spiritual materiality of language. Or we ourselves have been released from all blank's inferences therein. Specifically, no responsibility for past, present, or future miscarriages, stillbirths, blood cancer deaths, renal cancer, developmental delays, etc., may attach itself to the culprit we once knew going forward. No. The dead must go where they will now, unaccompanied, still and still and still. Thank you. This one is called Because the Exide Bankruptcy Order is Not Stayed. And it's from, I'm not sure, I didn't write down here if this is from online or the Times. It says, on May 19th, 2020, Exide and 4 subsidiaries filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection to facilitate the sale of its North American assets. They do all of this, of course, in order to the executives, the owners, to walk off with as much money as possible, obviously, and pay their petty little bit and then and avoid going to jail, etc. All right. God boasted a physical body once. Remember? For a brief running time, some 2,000 years ago. Yeah, I'll do that again. God boasted a physical body once. Remember? For a brief running time, some 2,000 years ago, blessed with a human name and face. In the end, his physical demise was a relatively brief, if brutal, consolidation of losses for the time. Yet that gone God body's remains, its residue, if you will, though you have no say in the matter, seeped into every pore of our unknowing, believers say, at the very entry point of human being, pours through us still. Or think of it this way, a nail finds a decimated God, then somehow finds us. Nerve-bracked, wave form, fetal sac, breath of dust on a Tuesday a.m., too goddamn hot for the season, via air's least glance and runnel of lead, under root-raised sidewalks, broken curbs shifting particulate matter into lobe and nerve-bracked, waveform, taxed breath, everything carried on delicate nursery folds of wind and footfall into your human hastening. And blank, formally released from all future care and cleaning. Imagine being released from the consequences of your worst sin. Bodies are like that, always being taken or taking in. Let me see if I've got this here. I might have. Let me see if I have. I was sorry. I don't usually come out into the audience or anything. Oh, I don't think I have it. All right. I thought I had, oh yeah, here it goes. Sorry, I got it here, yay. I'm gonna end on one more poem with a little change of perspective here. So it's called My Soul, and I wanted to write a poem about the condition of my soul when I felt that it was in very, very, very bad shape. And the epigraph, the date, the epigraph is June 25th, 2022. Anyone want to try to guess what that It was the day after something, June 25th, 2022. Dobbs decision, right. Nullifying Roe v. Wade. And you'll hear some other things mentioned, but I invite you to do this yourself. It's a wonderful cathartic experience, but not really. But to write about the state of your soul, you know, what you think your soul looks like at any particular moment. And anyway, it was interesting. All right, so I'm gonna end on this poem, My Soul. Dirty dish rag. Inland sea beset by reeking tufts and hollows. High tide's grime line wringing the unscrubbed bathtub of my psyche. Pine cone among corpses. Strange ganglia. Blast pit, approximate size and shape of an Etch-a-Sketch, from which I no longer, with artless sincerity, pray to redeem those I despise, in Congress, in the Supreme Court, preferring instead to imagine, hear me out, to the smallest datum and delictum of their agony, their last hours, weeks, years, after the crawling venality of their lives has been broadcast directly to their retinal neurons. I don't know how that's going to happen, but that's what I'm dreaming of here. And at last, there is no channel to change. And the comprehension on their melting faces when they hear prayer is not available to them, unless they wish to start over as a fourth grader in Uvalde, Texas, or a drag queen in Colorado Springs, or a pregnant 13-year-old rape victim anywhere in this country, and so feel as helpless as I did yesterday, before my toy soul, that brilliant contrivance, baseless, compelling nonfiction, petty arsonist, was deputized to bitterness alone. And although I felt the nerve trees, my dark creditors lean in, it had already become immaterial to me if my rank soul were forced to stay here 1,000 generations on the dying earth, or worse, I was damned to feel this burning hope forever. I'd feel it. I'd feel it. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I do so want to thank, this is a dream to have this here at Beyond Baroque and to have been honored this way. Dan, thank you so much for thinking of this, for approaching Quentin and Mariano. Thank you so much. Kim, thank you so much for everything you've done. I know we're going to talk a little bit. Is that right? Do we have time? We're done. We're done. And we'll talk in the parking lot. And I want to thank all the readers. Some folks drove a long way to be here, and I can't tell you how touched I am. And Lynn and Suzanne, Yvonne, and Marcia right there, and who else am I forget? Dan and Kim and Yvonne and Patty online, and the lovely thing that Elena sent. I'm touched and honored and just couldn't be happier. Thank you. This sends me out on a cloud of good energy for my writing to come, and thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you.